We're back to non-Western. In fact, we're looking at sort of medieval period non-Western. We'll return to this well one more time before the midterm. But let's talk about why we're dealing with this. First of all, when you look at interior design, designers are constantly looking around for different ideas. Obviously, ideas get stale, and you need new fashion. And generally, new concepts come from some outside source, usually that's going to be altered in some way to fit the contemporary form. Now, we've seen issues moving through here. So, for example, the Silk Road, not this Silk Road, but this Silk Road becomes a huge issue when we deal with Europe in the medieval, which we just did. They're taking a lot of Eastern ideas that are coming through the Byzantine Empire, located right about here around Istanbul, and those ideas are coming into Europe. The reason is, of course, we look at everything that isn't us as particularly luxurious. Today, two of the groups that we look at for design, the Swedes, Sweden in the form of IKEA, and I hate to say that in design class, but the design is good, the construction's horrible, but either way. And on the other side, we tend to look at Japan. And they have aesthetics that are very much opposed to what we have. Tend to be very minimalist, very clean lines, and that's bringing outside cultures in. So that's why we're looking at non-Western, because we want to look at the cultures that they're bringing in different forms of design and to open you up to these new ideas. So the Silk Road, of course, is an issue, as I've addressed in the past. The Silk Road opens up somewhere around 500 BC. So that would allow for the entire Roman Empire to have trade with China. And we know that that happens. In fact, they try and trick the Chinese into believing that they make better silk so that the Chinese will lower their silk prices. Ancient Greece would have had trade with China. We know this because we know that there are Buddhist monks who come from India and come to ancient Greece during that classical period, around 400 BCE. We see them arriving. We also see Christianity following the Silk Road the other way. Now, we will see during the medieval the rise of the Mongols, and the Mongols under Genghis Khan initially will spread out and create this massive empire. In fact, this is the largest land empire to have ever existed in human history. It covers roughly 25% of all the landmass of all the world, give or take. And it spreads from the Pacific, the East China Sea, all the way to the Danube River. So they're well into the Balkans. They're into modern-day Hungary in that area. So why does this become important? Well, in the medieval period, the Mongols, because they control virtually the entire Silk Road, will issue passports and take care of security along the entire route. This opens up huge amounts of trade. This is the period of Marco Polo going off to China and all of that. He can do it because it's particularly safe. You're not moving through different empires. You're not being taxed numerous times along the way. You have a single tax, you have a single security system. It's very, very safe. So we see a lot of those ideas moving into medieval Europe. And we saw that with that Byzantine influence, floor culture, the use of cushions, etc. Now, following the fall of the Mongol Empire, and in the Middle East, that's because of the Marduks in Egypt rising up, but they will be quickly quashed and destroyed by the Turks because the Turks use gunpowder. So, we have gunpowder being used in war, and that gives them power. They create the Ottoman Empire, which in 1453 will destroy what is left of the Byzantine Empire, which isn't much. The Ottoman Empire will last for a long time, but the problem is the Christian West doesn't want to trade with them. Also, the Ottoman Empire will tax things fairly heavily. As a consequence, we see the Portuguese and other groups during this period trying to find a sea route to the east, such as Vasco da Gama going to India. They also set up numerous trade ports along the coast of Africa. These are going to be free trade cities initially. So if you can get your goods there, you can trade for free, no taxation, etc. And they'll eventually move on to China and other ports. But of course, here we're seeing India. So this has a huge influence on Europe. They want everything Eastern because it's what the rich have. And that's kind of the story of interior design. Everyone wants what the rich have, and the rich get to set the trends. So they see these silks and things coming in. They want to use them in their homes. There's going to be increased demand. Therefore, you see increased trade. And we want to take a look at those cultures in the East and elsewhere where this trade is happening. This will always be influential. The Spanish will be influenced by the Aztec and the Inca in some way. We will see Asia being very influential on Europe. We will see different places being influential at different times. So that's why we keep going down this well. This is why we keep looking at non-Western. In terms of contemporary design, of course, we see a lot of non-Western design turning up today. Asia, specifically China, Vietnam, and Japan, tend to be very, very popular. India is always popular as a source of design concepts. So we see a lot of this. We also see a lot coming out of Africa, which we will deal with in another chapter. And we see a lot of early pre-Columbian and post-Columbian Americas used. It's all dependent on who your client is and how adventurous they want to be, how eclectic they want to be, because it sends a certain message, doesn't it? If I have a home and I'm your typical Wisconsin person, and I have a home based on Japanese design, for example, it gives a sense of culture, it gives a sense of positive eccentricity. I become a trendsetter. And that's where it becomes really important. So we need to look at these non-Western forms to give you ideas and also to let you know where some of the modern ideas are coming from. So where are we dealing with this week? We're going to be dealing a little bit with India and China, really building on what we did in the last non-Western chapter. We're going to deal with the art of the Americas once again, focusing on the Aztec, the Inca, a little bit of the plains and a little bit of the northwest coast. And our big focus is going to be Japan, because their design forms are coming to fruition in this period. So let's focus on that. Let's move on into non-Western medieval in the history of interior design.